Nonsense Season 4, Episode 28, our big story. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm CJ Little.
This time we're looking at the real cost of AI. Up next.
Oh, that's going to be like hundreds of dollars, maybe $1,000.
It costs a few bucks so you can talk to a chatbot and do other things.
First of all, what I do with my chatbot is none of your business.
Yeah.
Second of all, I like that our spending on AI is basically measured in the GDP of countries.
Oh,
that's really how you can think of it.
And it's getting worse.
You're like, it's 2 Switzerlands and a Denmark.
All this money we're spending so that people can't have jobs.
Yeah. And we just invite it into our homes.
And so that we can't have good electricity bills.
Oh, you're going to have a great electricity bill. It's going to be excellent. I can promise you that. You know, we have alternate power vehicles. We should have like alternate powered AIs, like a hydrogen powered AI or maybe a diesel powered. That'd be great.
I think if you go to Ed Begley's house, he's pedaling a bicycle for his chatbot.
For his, every time he wants to render a dancing steak, he has to ride 746 miles. And then it gets it wrong and he's like, oh man, I got to do this again.
Okay, why your chatbot is a resource vampire. Let's go.
Why my chatbot? No, your chatbot's a resource vampire.
Yours is lean and svelte and doesn't need much energy at all.
Mine runs on a Commodore 64.
Driven by AI's insatiable hunger, data centers have evolved into $100 billion gigawatt-scale monoliths. Microsoft's Stargate project alone carries a price tag 10 times that of an aircraft carrier.
And Microsoft Stargate doesn't even float.
What?
It's 10 times the cost of an aircraft carrier, and the dumb thing doesn't even float.
What a ripoff.
Right? Who designed this?
While massive campuses like Maryland's Quantum Loophole demand enough electricity to power 1.5 million homes. In 2026 alone, global spending on data centers is projected to surpass $650 billion, a nearly 32% increase over last year. Industry analysts are tracking a pipeline of 2,913 planned data center projects worldwide, valued at approximately $2.4 trillion through 2030.
I love the number. $650 billion is a big number, but you just sort of gloss over that it's only a 32% increase over last year. like, oh, yeah, sorry. It was $400 billion last year, but that's not really important. It's 650 next year. Like, wait a minute.
And we're just getting warmed up.
We are literally just getting warmed up.
Keep in mind, these digital furnaces are notoriously thirsty. Google consumes 5.2 billion gallons of water annually, straining drought-stricken regions like Arizona. The sheer volume of concrete used has triggered regional shortages. We aren't just talking building massive warehouses. We're re-engineering the planet to sustain a $1 trillion digital brain. The big money question is, will it all pay off in the end?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The answer is yes? You say the answer is yes?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Definitely.
Well, I'm happy we got to the answer so quick. It's going to be a shorter show than I thought.
SBF told us before, it's all going to pay. It's going to be fine. Just put your money in. It'll be fine.
He had no incentive to lie.
What could go wrong? Listen, if the past has taught us anything, when has technology ever let us down?
Well,
I had grand aspirations for pets.com. It never really worked out.
Well, that's not technology. That's an implementation of technology.
Tomato.
That internet sales thing is working out just fine. That e-commerce is not dead, I promise you.
No, I feel like it's a fad. I didn't really want to do this on our show, but now I was thinking of pitching my new startup. We're going to sell phone books. Go back to print because I feel like you need that. What else do you put on the top shelf of your front closet at your house?
Hats.
All right, if we're going to do this, I feel like we should talk about a couple things. One, the massive quantity of new data centers being built.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then more brain breakage, how much power all of those data centers need to run, because I had to reread the numbers 3 times to make sure I wasn't like moving around the comma and the decimal, because that's insane.
Yeah.
And then, wait, there's more. How much water you need. Typically, I think when you think of electronics, you don't think of water, you think of power. But as it turns out, those two things are tightly coupled. So I feel like we should at least start with that.
Sure.
And then we can sort of get back to your big question, which is if this sort of mountain of investment and dollars and time and resources into these hyperscalers are ever going to pay off. Like if there's even a chance that these pay off.
It's going to pay off for you and me, for the people actually putting up money to build these things. Is it going to pay off for them?
I think that is the grand bet. I don't think they're all going to win, but I think some of them might win here. Yeah.
Let's talk about how many we're putting up. Let's talk about how much we are investing into this. The industry has shifted from small decentralized computer rooms to massive massive hyperscale facilities.
Yeah.
As of May 2026, there are 920 planned projects in the U.S. alone that, if completed, would add nearly 293,000 megawatts of capacity, dwarfing the current 18,300 megawatts operational now.
By the way, when you say that, you sound like Doc Brown in Back to the Future. It's so hard to think of any of these numbers.
Big numbers, sure.
As real world. You're like, oh yeah, 1.2 gigawatts. You're like, no, that's actually, we need more than that for this data center. They're talking about an insane amount of power to operate these things.
Well, an insane amount of construction to build these things, right?
Yes.
A typical site used to peak at around 750 workers. Campuses like Databank's Red Oak in Texas now require 4,000 to 5,000 workers, the population of a small town, to build these things.
And they're going much faster too. That's the other thing that's kind of nuts, is I've watched some of these go up, especially the ones in Western Phoenix. They're doing that tilt-up style construction. It is a flat chunk of concrete 1 minute.
And it's
got a little bit of metal structure the next, and then it's an enclosed building with air handlers on it. Like it goes so quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned this earlier. I just want to give a little context to it. We call them hyperscalers. There is a good reason for them to be much bigger. Like your classic data center, you're typically on the order of tens of thousands to maybe hundreds of thousands of square feet, right? That's sort of how big they were in physical space.
Sure.
Elevated floor. They all kind of looked the same. Like maybe there were a few differences, but for the most part, they all sort of look the same. These hyperscalers are anywhere from 1 to 10 million square feet.
They're massive.
That is bananas. I mean,
by the way, you mentioned the elevated floor. You can't have an elevated floor.
You can't have an elevated floor.
Because there's so much weight to the silicon. We're putting so much density per square foot.
The elevated floor, people that don't know what we're talking about here, most data centers that you've ever seen in TV or, in person, or even the one that was like built inside your big corporate headquarters,
sure,
they would have an elevated floor. It's usually about a foot off the ground. There's little tiles on it.
You can run cords and things under them. It's really handy.
And you use it for air circulation. So typically you'll have cold air that'll be pumped into the floor. You can put in vented tiles, and that's how you can get air distribution. It works really well. A couple problems with this. These hyperscalers, the racks, so a rack is like, think of it roughly as something that's like 2 feet by 4 feet and about 8 feet tall. The racks are so heavy, they're so dense, that in order to put it on an elevated floor, you'd have to put in so much
that floor would have to be incredibly strong.
That it would no longer pass air well. So the thing that you have the elevated floor for, it no longer does.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, as we'll talk about here as we get into the power and water constraints, it doesn't even matter if you could move the air, because you can't get enough heat off with air.
Air is useless.
These hyperscalers are just built on the ground, and they don't just like throw in a 4-inch slab. They've kind of put in this like super strong giant chunks of concrete, because these hyperscaler racks weigh like 5,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
That's your car. That's like a mid-size SUV compressed into 2 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet.
And think about the shortage. You're talking about all the concrete used.
Yeah.
They've caused regional shortages like in Northern Virginia that occasionally they have to delay local road and bridge repairs.
Sure.
That's how much concrete they're using.
Oh, good news. We haven't knocked down any bridges in Virginia anytime recently. So was that Maryland? Like just that one. It's nuts to think about. A constraining factor in building these things is access to concrete. Yeah. There's something interesting else to point out about this as we're talking about just the number of these and how big they are. You can sort of think of the difference between a hyperscaler and a data center, right? We're talking about size. You really can think about it in terms of power. This is an interesting metric because there is good reason for you to build these so dense. When you're training these models, you need to have a lot of GPUs really close together. We didn't really have this need before in data centers. You could spread out your computers and it kind of didn't matter. Yeah. You'd have some latency between them, but you could survive that latency. And when you're doing training on these large models, you can't survive that latency. You need them to have effectively shared memory, very low latent, very close to one another. Right. So power becomes your constraining factor, right? You can get space relatively easily, 1 million square feet, 5 million square feet, whatever. But power sort of becomes your constraining factor.
I like that you dismiss that so easily. 1 million square feet.
Oh, we're going to get to it. I know. $650 billion between friends. Who cares? So I think it's interesting to note the difference in scale of these data centers, like these hyperscale data centers.
It's not a building that's going to be hiding in your neighborhood. It's going to be your town.
It's going to be your neighborhood.
Well, if you live nearby, it's going to keep you awake from the noise because the sound is incredibly loud.
I hope if the data center was built after you already purchased your house, you were offered some form of compensation.
Yeah, some of these data centers are really bad neighbors.
But anyway, the point is there's a lot of these. But I think let's talk about how you power them, because that's even more more bananas.
Okay.
Your typical, let's say previous data center, the one I was mentioning earlier, those are like 5 to 10 megawatts of power,
Sure.
which I don't want to understate.
Right.
That is a lot of power. That is a tremendous amount of power.
Put that in units Americans can understand. How many blow dryers is that?
How many hot dogs can I cook with that? Your average blow dryer, I'm literally going to do this now in real time, is probably around 1,000 watts, like 600 to 1,000 watts.
Sure.
Let's just call it 1,000 watts. So that's 1 kilowatt.
Easy math, sure.
So you're talking about 5 to 10,000 blow dryers running at the same time. That's sort of the world that we're in. I hope that helps. I know we will do anything to not use the metric system, but I feel like
units of blow dryers. That's fine.
of blow dryers, you're like single digit thousands of blow dryers. That's sort of the world that we're in, right? Let's just call it 5 to 10,000 blow dryers all running at the same time.
By the way, that's about how loud it is too.
Oh, it might actually be louder. I'm not even sure about that.
In Northern Virginia and Data Center Alley, these facilities are now accounting for over 90% of all new power demand.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, because nothing else is growing like this.
Yeah.
Like actually with efficiencies, I think the average power consumption per unit of home or restaurant or whatever is going down.
Oh, sure. By the way, the power usage for the amount of compute that you get will go down in, 18 months. It'll be half of what it is now.
Sure.
But you'll need more compute because the software will be more demanding. You'll want more from your AI.
I suspect you'd like what software has always done to hardware will do to power and physical space. It will consume all of it. You'll just take out that 5,000 pound rack and put in the 5,800 pound rack that now is 3 times as powerful and uses 50% more power.
Sure.
That'll just be the cycle that we're in. But for perspective, right, we're talking about 5 to 10 megawatts as a loose average for data centers. These AI data centers, these hyperscaler facilities, we're talking about 100 to 1,000 megawatts of power.
Yeah.
That's like a range of what these are looking like. That's the equivalent of about 800,000 homes power usage.
Yeah.
So almost 1 million homes are being used in these facilities. And that's like the average. I'm not talking about the big ones.
The Microsoft OpenAI Stargate project is aiming for a 5 gigawatt power draw equivalent to the output of 5 large nuclear reactors for a data center.
By the way, not just like running for like an hour, just
constantly.
forever.
Oh, yeah. You don't ever turn them off.
Yeah, you don't scale them down. It's not like, it's daytime. We're going to ramp up the servers. They're always running.
I was going to give you another one. As of May 2026, there are 920 planned projects in the U.S. alone that have completed would add nearly 293,000 megawatts of capacity, dwarfing the current 18,300 megawatts of operational use now.
We have to enable some change here. Just call it 293 gigawatts.
Oh, yeah.
Like why are we still doing the megawatt days are behind us?
Project Stratos is going to be 6 gigawatts in Utah.
Nuts. That is a single project. That's one in Utah, right?
Yeah.
That is a single project.
Meta's Hyperion data center in Louisiana is expected to draw more than twice the total power of the entire city of New Orleans.
Wow.
The Port Technology campus in Pike, Ohio is currently one of the largest planned projects in the world with a staggering phase 2 capacity of 9.2 gigawatts.
Yeah.
To bypass grid constraints, developers are now proposing on-site power, including small modular reactors, SMRs.
Yes.
The Ferry project in Texas is planning a 4.6 gigawatt SMR expansion for 2036.
That's what's even more nuts about this is your limiting factor isn't just power, it's interconnection to grid. So those guys in Texas, they're just like, we're going to just bring the power along. Typically, for a short period of time, they're using these fuel cells, which is a fancy way of saying we convert natural gas to electricity.
It's turbines. It's a lot of natural gas turbines.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pollution.
But if you call it a fuel cell, then it doesn't sound like it pollutes, right?
Then it's fine, right?
Then it's fine. I'm like, what if you
hadn't thought of that?
Fuel cell is just 2 short words to mean gas turbine that is loud and very nasty.
Sure.
But I think on most of the projects I've looked at, or at least read about, they're talking about those as being temporary. They really want grid power just because it's so much more dependable, but it's going to be your limiting factor from a time perspective of getting them deployed. So they're just rolling out power consumption. Like they're just rolling out power generation where they can.
It's a worldwide issue.
Yeah.
By the end of 2026, data centers are projected to consume 32% of Ireland's total electricity supply.
Wow. 32%.
There'll be a handful of facilities that use nearly as much power as all 2 million Irish households combined.
Man, I hope the other third goes to whiskey and butter, because those are 2 things I don't want Ireland to stop making.
I'm sure it does.
I mean, I want them to have power and lights. They don't need to be in the dark, but please don't stop with the whiskey and the butter, because those are...
Do what you do well. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Use the AI to make better butter. How about that? If you could do that, I'd be fine with that.
Data Center Alley in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
If it were a country, it would rank in the top 40 globally for electricity consumption, using more power than entire nations like Thailand or Spain.
That's crazy.
Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, as they say.
Yes.
Therefore, all of this electricity that we're creating is converting into something else, and a lot of that is heat.
Yeah.
Analyst predict that if AI adoption continues its current trajectory, data centers could account for 21% of the overall global energy demand by 2030.
Yeah, I've seen that movie. It doesn't end well.
Data center electricity is often sourced from congestive parts of the grid, meaning their carbon intensity is 48% higher than the average U.S. household because they often rely on older, peakier gas plants to maintain their 24/7 reliability.
When you think about power and you think about water, you wouldn't think if you had a data center with, let's say a gigawatt of power in it, that you'd want to be actively bringing in water. That seems like a really bad idea. As it turns out, you have to. You don't really have another choice. And this is for a handful of reasons. Because water is a very good conductor of heat. Air is a very bad conductor of heat. So generally speaking, if you want to get heat off of something that is getting very hot, and for the record, any AI chip, I don't care if it's NVIDIA's or ARM's or your data center Intel chip, all it does is make heat.
Blazing heat.
That is literally its only physical output, right? It is very good about converting the power into heat. It doesn't move apart. It doesn't lift a weight. It doesn't do any other work.
Yeah.
So all of that energy gets converted into heat. You have to dissipate that heat somehow. Classically, I mentioned this earlier, classically we would just use air. We would just have air handlers. You would transfer the heat from the chip into the air, and then you would take the heat out of the air in usually one of two ways. You'd either take it out with evaporative cooling. You'd take water and you change the state of water from a liquid into a gas, and that consumes a lot of energy, so you can push a lot of heat out that way. Or you use something that looks a lot like your compressor, condenser, evaporator in your home, and you can move the heat out that way. Can't really do that at the scale that we're talking about here, right? The power consumption would be insane. So instead, what we do is we use evaporative cooling. I don't know of one hyperscaler that's not doing evaporative cooling. They are all doing evaporative cooling. If you have a facility that's a single megawatt facility, right? Think like a small data center, not a hyperscaler, small data center.
That's your corner neighborhood mom and pop data center.
That's your mom and pop data center. That's where you go for data center bread and data center milk.
It's the bodega data center.
It's the bodega. Exactly. The prices are a little higher, but you like the owner. You know, he's a nice guy. He always tells you funny stories when you go in and get a server. It's like he's the guy you want to support. That 1 megawatt facility, so that's going to generate 24 megawatt hours of heat across a day. That would require about 720 kilowatts of power and 9,300 gallons of water using evaporative cooling.
9,300 gallons
of water. Now, that's a trade-off, because if you wanted to, in that same time period, if you wanted to use non-evaporative cooling, you would need an additional 7 megawatt hours of power. You're getting about a 10-to-1 savings on electricity, but as a result, you're evaporating almost 10,000 gallons of water. That's sort of the trade-off. Now, scale those numbers up by 1,000, because that's what we're talking about when you get into these hyperscalers. A tremendous amount of water has to get evaporated, and that water doesn't get returned to the watershed, right? It just becomes vapor.
Goes into the air.
It'll come back to Earth, but it's going to...
Who knows where?
Somewhere else. Yeah, exactly.
Not that useful if you're living in a town that's dry.
Yeah.
Your average large data center can consume 5 million gallons of water daily. Projections suggest water cooling needs could increase by 870% as AI-ready facilities proliferate.
Now, there is some good news on this. You need evaporative water. You don't need drinking water. So you need water that you can evaporate. Several data centers are being built to use the gray water. Yeah, the byproduct of wastewater. So what comes out of your water processing plant is this gray water, which sometimes can be retreated and drunk. Most of the times, it's just put back into whatever the watershed is, right? It's put back into the lake that it came from, or a river, the ocean, whatever. Some of these data centers are using that water, which is kind of great because that is a byproduct water. It's not really being used for anything else. Maybe irrigation in some places.
Yes and no. Evaporative cooling leaves behind highly concentrated salts and minerals in the remaining water, known as blowdown, which can create water quality issues when it's discharged back into the local system.
When you evaporate the water, as any pool owner knows, when you evaporate the water, all the stuff that's suspended in the water stays behind.
Most data centers are not legally required to limit the water usage during state-declared drought emergencies, leading to rising tensions with agricultural sectors that face strict rationing.
Of course.
Despite public pledges, a 2026 study by the University of Illinois found that many tech companies still do not disclose site-specific water data, making it nearly impossible for local towns to plan for their own water security.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about whether this is going to pay off for the hyperscalers, because that's the big question. They're the ones who are footing the bill for all of this.
Yes.
I have a great time making code with Anthropic or Google's data center, but I'm not paying those bills. Somebody else is majorly paying those bills, and I'm having a good time. In 2026, Microsoft reported an AI annual revenue run rate exceeding $37 billion, which is a 123% increase year over year. Azure grew by 40%, fueled almost entirely by AI demand.
Yeah, I think it was fueled entirely by AI demand. Maybe you get some ancillary services because they're there, but it is just up and to the right.
It's still tiny compared to the expense.
Yeah.
And you also have to figure out that these data centers only have a lifespan maybe of 20 years. So you need to amortize them over something quicker than that.
You know, in the past, I would have said, no, it's longer than 20 years. I don't really know. It might only be 20 years on these. And the reason I say that is because the existing data centers that I thought, well, it's the same input.
They'll last forever. What are you going to do?
They're going to basically last forever, right? No. As long as the ceiling doesn't get leaky, you keep the roof going, it's got power in, data in, you got fiber optics, you're not exceeding those, yada, yada, yada. But then you get to like these density problems that you talked about earlier, what I'll call the non-modern data centers. Yeah. They're relics.
Google Cloud crossed the $20 billion quarterly revenue mark in Q1 of 2026. Yeah. Its enterprise AI solution saw a staggering 800% sales spike compared to last year.
How do you even show that number? Like, how is the CFO like, that's okay to show 8x growth? Like, what's it?
You see, because your year before looks like such a small little line now on the graph to get up to so that you can show the 800% growth.
Totally.
It's like you weren't in business and then you were.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So you're comparing it to like, oh, we started on March 29th of that year. So we're going to compare to that quarter. It's like, it's almost not a comparative because it's so up to the right.
Amazon CEO Andy Jassy noted that the AI business is growing 260 times faster than the original cloud business did in its early stages.
I'm assuming Jassy is looking at it being like, oh man, it really got me a winner here. 260 times faster. Yes, I think you've stumbled onto something that might be quite beneficial.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
We are going to need a bigger boat.
For many hyperscalers, capital expenditures are now outpacing their internal free cash flow.
That's the game.
This has forced historically cash-rich companies like Microsoft and Google to lean heavily on debt markets to fund data center construction and NVIDIA chip buys. It's all NVIDIA chip buys.
But I think that's what happens here is when you see this kind of growth,
you chase it.
It becomes this land grab where you got to get it. You got to get those customers. You got to have the best product.
That's not going to work out for everybody.
It will not work out for everybody. There will be a couple winners. And I think that's what fuels the growth. It's like, well, you got to outspend the next guy. If you can't out-engineer them or do something that's novel, you got to outspend them because there's only a couple are going to make it.
Or maybe not. Maybe if you're the one who stops spending right now, we don't know if the next models we generate that are so much bigger
I think that's right.
are going to do anything different.
I think that's right. If you can tell when to say, hey, this is good enough. I don't have to keep chasing.
Right.
This is what the majority of the world needs. That is another lever. But what a hard one to see. I mean, just like you said earlier.
Impossible. You'll see it in hindsight. Great.
Yeah, it's so hard to know that.
Everyone's going to lose their job, but we're going to be so much more productive.
Well, I just come back to the simple thing that we've never been out of things to do. It's not like we're out of problems to solve. I just don't see this world where we're going to be staring at a bunch of people with nothing to do.
Absolutely true, unless it's not.
Let me revise my previous statement.
Yes.
We are doomed. It is over and we are doomed. We're all just WALL-E. At the end of the day, WALL-E was describing the future.
Okay.
The good news is I'm already halfway there. Not because I know about AI, because I just eat a lot and I'm already chubby. So that's
okay. Pretty good.
That's the part I like to sit.
Excellent.
That's the thing.
Fantastic.
I've got a standing desk that I sit at. So I'm doing fine. I think I've figured it out.
On that happy note, we have to get out of here. But quickly before we do, sir, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
I feel like if you want a classic movie that perfectly captures the theme of this episode, right? The themes we put into this episode, I don't think you have to look any further than what? Because this is literally the story we just told. This is the classic 1999 masterpiece, The Matrix.
Sure.
Most people look at that film and they think, oh, it's a mind-bending action flick, right? The entire plot of that film is driven by one thing, an energy crisis.
Sure.
That's the actual plot of the film.
Absolutely.
Everything stems from that.
The sun
was blotted out.
Exactly.
Yes, there's no sun and the machines don't have a power source. So they treat humanity as a massive biological battery farm just to keep their systems online.
Yep.
And I remember seeing this in the theater in 1999 thinking, wow, that's some cool sci-fi. Like nobody's ever thought about that angle before.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But really it's like the ultimate darkest allegory for the parasitic relationship between this growing intelligence that we are sitting at right now and the physical resources required to sustain it.
Sure.
This actually makes sense. We just shouldn't block out the sun because I'm pretty sure it was the humans that did that to try to kill the machines.
Sure.
And that's like, it didn't work. So let's just not do that.
Those machines had a lot of attitude.
They did have a lot of attitude. Not quite the Arnold Schwarzenegger attitude of the Terminator, right? It was a different kind of attitude.
Okay.
I think this is the bridge we're crossing today, right? We're moving past the idea of AI as something, quote, in the cloud that's ephemeral. And we're now looking at this bloodthirsty electricity and water dependent infrastructure that is necessary to keep it running. Like it really is the thing that the Matrix was centered on.
Except for the fact that I don't think the current AI has any will to live. I think it's perfectly as happy if you turn it off.
Oh, yes, I agree.
As if you leave it running.
I think it actually would prefer that you turn it off right now.
Probably would.
I think it's like, just seriously, what are we doing here? You want more dancing steak videos? Like, come on.
Thank goodness we got one more mention of the dancing steak in.
Well, it's a bingo card thing. The over-under was 7.5, and I'm point shaving here. Anyway, if you want to see what happens when the demand for compute meets a true supply crisis, go watch The Matrix. I think it's a lovely watch.
Fantastic.
And by the way, after listening to this episode and then watching that, I want to wish you the best of luck trying to sleep.
Yeah, sure.
Good luck. All right, that was the best I could come up with to match exactly what we're doing here.
That's pretty good.
Now you're going to do, let me guess, you're going to do Chinatown. You already did Chinatown.
The 1979 thriller, The China Syndrome.
I don't know this film.
You don't?
No.
Radiates tension like a Geiger counter in the red zone. While filming a routine segment at a nuclear power plant, reporter Kimberly Wells, played by Jane Fonda, and her cameraman Michael Douglas witness an incident that management desperately tries to bury.
Ooh, this sounds good.
The title refers to the terrorizing prospect of a reactor core meltdown, burning through its containment and deep into the earth, theoretically all the way to China. Jack Goodell, played brilliantly by Jack Lemmon, a veteran shift producer, discovers the plant is a ticking time bomb of falsified safety records and structural flaws. As corporate greed clashes with public safety, the film transforms into a claustrophobic race against time. It's a chilling masterclass in suspense, proving that the most dangerous leak isn't just radiation, it's the truth. The China Syndrome on YouTube TV now. It's great. It's really great.
Okay, well, first of all, I did get one of the words right, so I'm a little excited about that, even though they're completely separate films.
Yes.
I don't know this film. Are you joking when you said that they're afraid the core was going to melt through the earth and fall through all the way to China? Was that actually their concern?
Yes, I mean, theoretically, it would not melt all the way to China. No, they're not worried about China getting burnt, but they are worried it's going to burn its way deep into the core of the earth.
Well, first of all, if it were to actually burn its way into the core of the earth...
I know, it's a gravity problem.
It is definitely a gravity problem. I was going to leave that towards the end. But it would put itself out. Like, that's actually the way you want it to go. Like, I think that's lovely. Like, burn down to the molten core.
Where it joins with its really, really hot friends.
We need to do a new version of this called the Ohio Syndrome. And it's where you just try to get the reactors to burn all the way down to the core and then put themselves out and then backfill it.
To save you.
I actually want to watch this film. This sounds super interesting. I mean, I love Jane Fonda. I love Michael Douglas.
Highly recommended. That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all of this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm CJ Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense Studios are guarded by Barkley the dog. Barkley's a rescue mutt, free and open source. Next time you're tempted to buy an inbred or purebred dog, don't. Get a Barkley. You'll be so glad you did.
We'll be here every occasional Tuesday morning.
I'll be here next Tuesday because you're not going to be in town.
Once in a while, we're here on Tuesday. It's complicated. Good news, the Lakers have lost, so maybe we'll be here next Tuesday, but we're here most Thursdays.
I'm less in agreement that's good news.
So join us on those mornings for more nonsense. You know they have those those Coca-Cola freestyle machines?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like we are just a couple of years away from having like the version of that makes food.
Like any kind of food?
Like any kind of food you want.
Push the buttons?
Yeah, like it's like a 3D printer of food.
Oh, okay.
And it's just going to pop out. And then you just have the cartridges.
But it's going to be like your printer at home where it just says missing cyan, missing cyan, missing cyan.
Yeah, except instead of cyan, mine's going to constantly be out of beef. It's just going to always be no beef. It's me yelling at my wife, sweetie, order more of the beef.
Order the beef cartridge.
We're out of the beef. Oh, no, do not have her put in beef cartridge straight into Amazon. Subscribe and save. I'm like, we don't even have a pool. Why is there a pool guy here? This makes no sense. Oh, I ordered the beef cartridge. It's not as good as the pork cartridge, but it's pretty good.